Thank you for tuning in to Ungentrified with Kent Johnson. Ungentrified takes an unfiltered view on pop culture, music, television and film, politics, current events, and topics central to the worldwide Black community. Ungentrified is a safe audio space for celebrating Black culture in its purest form. Thank you for joining another episode of Ungentrified. Of course, this is your boy, your host, Kent Johnson. And this topic is a very sensitive topic, but I'm glad that I got the person that I have today to come on and talk about it. But before we get into that, we have some things to talk about. So are you ready to talk about what's been going on in the news lately?
Yes, I am.
Okay, cool. So first thing on our list today is the topic of your name and where that places you in hiring. So recently, there were two Black women who received rejection letters from Mentality Health, which is a health company in Missouri they applied to. The rejection letter said that they didn't get the job because their name were considered, quote unquote, too ghetto. So the first lady, who is Hermisha Robinson, she posted this rejection letter on Facebook and let people know what the situation was. Of course, it went viral and went to an uproar. Then another woman came forward, Dornisha Zachary, and said that she also got a similar letter from Mentality Health. Mentality came out a few days later with a press statement saying that their LinkedIn profile was hacked and that wasn't anything that was official or sent out from them. LinkedIn said, nah, that ain't it. There's no indication of hacking. We ain't have no parts in it. So it reopened this conversation, and I won't even say reopen. I don't know if it's ever closed around how names are perceived in hiring or in business or just in life, period, and how people have to deal with that on a day-to-day. What's your take on these two ladies getting this rejection letter? Do you think that was a hack, or you think someone got a little too slick in HR at Mentality?
Well, nothing is too above being hacked, right? I feel like hacking is such a norm nowadays that I wouldn't be surprised if it was a hack. And then I also wouldn't be surprised if someone just was fed up one day and sent all these people, at least 20, they said in the article, an email referencing their quote unquote ghetto sounding names. So it's interesting that the correlation between the talent management, I think Indeed, and Mentality Health is not this, like, they're not on the same page. So there leaves a little room for question about what's really going on. But I really wouldn't throw out the fact that it may have been hacked by someone that just wanted to be a smart ASS,
Yeah, when I saw that, I was like, it felt hackish, but then at the same time, I can't do that anymore. I can't feel like nobody would do that because people do that.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that was my take on it. And it just goes with the notion that we've been seeing in the last 2 years that people are getting far more comfortable with their racism. And and these things coming out more and more often. I feel like we see these stories all of the time now. The second item on our current events today is about a girl who changed her name to something less Black to get ahead in business. And that girl is you. So I know you guys are probably wondering who I'm talking to, especially since I led with that. But why don't you go ahead and tell the people who you are?
Well, my name is Tanisha Colon-Bibb, and who am I? I'm from Harlem. I always lead with that. I'm very connected to where I'm from. I feel like it's built in giving me a foundation of who I am. I am an entrepreneur. I'm a visionary. I'm a lover. Yeah. That's who I am in a nutshell.
That's a great introduction. I hope that is how everybody is introduced to you. But yeah, so Tanisha changed her name to something less black to get ahead in business. And we're going to get into that. But before we do, Tanisha, one thing I ask everybody that comes on the show is what's on their radar at the moment. So what's your favorite jam? What book are you reading? What YouTube hole have you fallen into? What Netflix binge are you on? Like, what's your thing right now?
Well, we had a little bit of pre-discussion, and I consume so much content because I work in public relations and in communications that there are a million things that I'm like consumed with right now. One being the uproar challenge from the new Carter 5 album.
Oh, yeah.
With the because I'm from obviously I led with I'm from Harlem, so it's very very funny to see a new generation of kids being introduced to Diddy and Black and just the whole idea of how we celebrate life in Harlem, which is by dancing. So I'm really really excited and interested in the uproar challenge that I see going viral. I'm also really interested in the remake of these classic Black films like Space Jam 2 with Ryan Coogler and LeBron, which I think is going to be amazing. I really think they're going to do something great with that. And then Lena Waithe and Halle Berry with Boomerang, remaking it into a series instead of a movie, which I think is really smart, and I'm excited about that because Boomerang is a classic, classic, classic. If you have not seen it, I need to question your blackness. And then there was another one that's coming out that I mentioned. Bad Boys 3. I'm a huge Bad Boys fan. Love Will. Love Martin. Martin hasn't signed on yet, so he's still negotiating, but Will said yes. So I'm excited about what's going to happen with that too.
Yes, I talked to you earlier before we got on. I dedicated a full episode to the greatness of Boomerang. So shout out to that episode. If you want to listen to it, it's episode 12 of the show. But yeah, that is one of my favorite movies of all time. So I'm very sensitive about this show coming up.
Yes. I trust that Lena and Halle was in it. You know what I mean? So it's like, but I trust that Lena has the vision to like really make something dope about it. Well, we'll see.
Yes. And I know that Ben Corey Jones, who was a writer for Insecure, is also
shout out to Morehouse.
Yeah, shout out to Morehouse. He's taking the lead on the storyline and the writing for Boomerang. So that gave me confidence that they're gonna take care of it. So yeah. Ben, Halle, and Lena. When I saw Halle came on, I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So we have, the tradition. We have
come on, Angela.
Right.
Yes.
We have the appreciation.
Love should have brought you home last night. Like, come on, like classic lines.
Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah. So I am, like I said, I'm tense but excited about it at the same time. Yeah, let's see what's on my radar right now. Oh, and also speaking of Space Jam 2, shout out to Terrence Nance, who's also attached to that project, and he is the creator behind Random Acts of Flyness on HBO. So if you guys haven't seen that, before you cut off your HBO now, since Insecure is done, watch Random Acts of Flyness. It is a great piece of Black work, so you definitely love it, and it's unlike anything you've ever seen before. Actually, what's on my radar is me playing lawyer again. So a lot of people don't know, but I side hustle as an attorney, and people always laugh when I say that, but it's not my bread and butter, but I am a licensed attorney. So one of the things I have to do every year to maintain my license is take like continuing legal education courses. So I was being real lazy this year and waited to the last minute. So I'm doing like all things law right now. I'm putting on that hat. And then in a few days, in about a week and a half or so, I'll be at CultureCon speaking on legal insights for entrepreneurs. So I'm putting that hat back on and making sure it's fitting right before I step up in there, so I can tell everybody the good things that they need to know about their business and law. So if you're going to be at CultureCon, I'm going to be there. Tanisha's going to be there too.
Yeah, I will.
So yeah, that's what's on my radar right now. No new jams at the moment for me. Netflix is quiet right now for me. I have started getting back into like fall shows, but
Oh,
None.
I'm in fall shows.
Uh,
I'm like This Is Us, hands down,
yeah,
best TV drama on on television right now.
yeah.
The new show A Million Things, which tackles mental health and suicide, is on TV right now. Another great show. I think it's from the producers of This Is Us or the writers. I don't quote me, fact check me on that, but A Million Things about four adult men who are friends and one of them commits suicide. And that's how the story kind of starts. So I'm watching that right now and it's pretty good so far.
Yeah, I heard about that. I
Yeah,
read
it's
the
good.
premise and I was like, I'm gonna pin that and come back to it like at a low point when like shows are in sweeps or something and then catch up.
Mhm.
I feel like I
Mhm.
watch way too much TV now. I like,
I do, but yeah.
yeah. But yeah, I just went on a tirade about the second episode of This Is Us because I watched it this morning.
Oh.
And I hit up my friend. I was like, that family doesn't deserve Randall. Like, uh, and I stick by that statement. Randall is a class act, and
He is.
that
I
family
haven't
would be
seen it yet.
trash without him. Okay.
They would. I mean, that says so much. We can go so much deeper into that and
Yeah.
why that is.
Yes.
But Jack too. I mean, Jack is a class act, and yeah, I love this. I haven't seen the second episode yet.
Okay.
My Hulu is on hold right now, so when I get that back up, I'll watch the second episode.
Yeah. I was angry at the end of the second episode.
Oh, damn, Kent. Okay,
So yeah,
okay,
you got to watch it and report back. But
I will.
but that statement is a general statement that applies to any episode, any season. Randall's a class act. Beth is a queen.
Queen.
And that family
Queen.
doesn't deserve. I don't care what nobody says. That family doesn't deserve. All right. So before we go down a This Is Us tangent, let's go ahead and get focused and get back on the topic at hand. So as we were talking a few minutes earlier, you wrote this really introspective article that I saw on LinkedIn, but it was originally posted on Huffington Post.
Mm-hmm.
And when I read it, a friend of mine had shared it. I was like, I saw the title and I was like, okay, I absolutely have to read this. And then started reading to it. And I was like, okay, now I absolutely have to talk to this person. But it was about your experience in your journey, with your name and what you did initially, and then what you did recently to address how you felt your name was perceived by the world. So take us back. What prompted you to write this article?
Yeah. So, without giving away too much of it, because everyone should go read the article. I went to Spelman College, hence my shout out to Morehouse comment a little bit earlier. And last year during homecoming, we had this really great thing called Spell Talks, which is basically a TED Talk version. And they had 10 women speak. I was one of the women, and my talk for the day was about authenticity. It was the title was How Cardi B Won 2017 by Being Authentic.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in it. Like, I love Cardi. I can write a case study about her and her growth in this industry. But it was all centered around authenticity. And if you know me, if anyone knows me, they know that when you talk to me, you're gonna get the reality of the situation. I really hold things back. I'm pretty authentic about who I am, face to face, in person, as deep as you want to get, I can go. But one thing that was kind of the elephant on my back, or the gorilla on my back, as they say, was the fact that I wasn't going by my birth name because I felt not ashamed, but I just felt like it hindered me in some way. So I was doing this talk with my middle name, which is, we'll go into that, with my middle name. And I was talking about authenticity. And afterwards, I just felt so fake. I felt like I'm talking to these young women at Spelman about how they should be authentic and how they should lead with who they are and the reality of their lives and use that as strength. And I'm out here being inauthentic, right? And so it really, really resonated. It really, really resonated with me after homecoming. And I made a decision at the end of the year to go back to my first name. And then once I did that, my girlfriends, my squad, they suggested that I write about it because a lot of people were confused. I'd gone by another name for about 6 years. So a lot of people that I just met were confused. A lot of people that I had known before when I initially changed my name were confused. So people didn't really know the story. So I was like, you know what? I should write. I've graduated from Spelman with an English degree. I love to write. I work in public relations, so writing is really huge. So I've always been a writer. And so they were like, you should write your story so that people can understand why you made this decision to do it in the first place and then why you made the decision to change back. So that's kind of what preempted that. And so I originally wrote it as a LinkedIn story by itself, like solely a LinkedIn story. And then my girlfriend pushed me, you got to have people in your group that push you to go bigger, right? And
Exactly.
so
Yes.
she said to me, you need to submit this as a personal essay or personal story to Huffington Post. And I was like, no. I was like, no, they're not gonna, like, who cares? You know what I mean? Like, this is my story. And she was like, no, you really do. And later on that evening, the same day that I posted it on LinkedIn, and I got so many great like responses and whatever, I've sent it to HuffPost. And by the morning, they the personal stories editor emailed me back and said she wanted to post it. So I took it down from LinkedIn, the original post, in the process of posting it on Huffington Post. And then once it was posted on Huffington, then I reposted it on LinkedIn.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. The when I saw it shared, I saw hundreds of comments of people just going in on their
Yes.
experiences and their opinions on your experience. And
Yes.
I was just like, this is something that is a weight that sits on our community a lot. I know it sits on other communities too, but I think we get hit by it the most.
Yeah.
And it's just it's frustrating. And I've had conversations with friends of mine now who when they're having a baby on the way and they've said like I'm not naming my baby such and such because I want my baby to have
Right.
a job, or
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna set my baby up like that. And then I have some people who are very adamant like, no, I'm gonna name my child anything I
Yes.
want because
Yes.
I would hope that they live in a space where it doesn't matter anymore.
Yes.
But we know that is not the case.
Yeah. The comments were really, and I read all of them. I wanted to know what people were saying, good and bad. I responded to some, I shied away from responding to others, but majority of the responses were people who had either experienced it themselves or were just grateful that I told the story. But there were some people who, like you said, were very adamant about Black people who were like, we shouldn't name our kids ghetto names, right? Or some people who hadn't read the article and just read the headline, which was of course clickbait, right?
Mhm.
I changed my Black sounding name to get ahead in business. Is very clickbaity. But because they hadn't read the article, they called me a sellout and they said that I was racist and that I didn't believe in myself and like all these things. But I'm like, no, this is a story of empowerment, right? Like this is a story of actually going against all of that. But the comments were overwhelming in a sense that like, wow, people who Tanisha is like, yeah, it's an Isha name, whatever, but people who have way more eccentric names than I did definitely spoke up. And it was really interesting to hear their stories. And they DM'd me and we talked and there were a lot of great conversations.
Yeah. So, did you ever ask your parents why they decided to name you Tanisha? Is there a story behind Tanisha?
I don't know how real this story is, but we'll have my mom fact check this one day. I guess maybe she can. She told me she originally wanted to name me Tunisia after the African country,
Mhm.
right? North African country, and okay, fine. But she said I got birthed in a midwife center, so it wasn't a normal hospital. It was a small midwife center in New York, and she said this is what she told me, that she said Tunisia, but the nurses wrote Tanisha and not Tunisia. And then when they found out, they were just like, okay, whatever. Like my parents were like, okay, that works. Like it doesn't really matter because my siblings' names are like George, Corey. Dara is my sister's name, but I think there's like an African meaning behind the name Dara.
Mhm.
But Tanisha it's kind of like weird in the pot, right? Of my siblings. And so I think it just kind of stuck. She just was like, okay, cool, whatever.
Yeah, your name does stick out amongst your siblings.
Right, like very strange. I'm the baby too, so I guess she was just tired of thinking of names. Like, yeah, sure, that works. But I've looked it up, and it means girl born on Monday.
Oh, really?
Yes, I have looked it up. It does mean girl born on Monday, but I was in fact born on a Friday.
Oh,
So,
so maybe you were intended for Monday and you came
right?
a couple
Maybe
days
that.
early.
Maybe that was it.
So, all right, Tanisha born, and then after you graduated from undergrad, you decided to shift to your middle name, which is Dariana.
Yes, perfect. You said it right.
And so I always tell people that I think Black folks have an innate kind of, I don't know, some kind of inbred skill where we can look and be like, oh, it's Dariana. Like, it's not hard for us to pull out the intent of someone's name.
Right. The phonetics of,
Yeah. Even names where it may look like it's hard. It's like, okay, it could be one or two things. I'm going to leave with this one and see how it goes. But Dariana. Now, some would say that sounds just as ethnic as Tanisha.
Yes.
Why'd you opt for Dariana instead of like a surefire European name, like a Kate or an Angela?
Oh my God, I am so not a Kate. That is so funny. Well, I didn't want to be like completely not myself, right? Like, so I always tell people I'm going the Rihanna route because Rihanna's first name is Robin, but her middle name is Rihanna, right? And so I was like, I'm just going to do something that people don't know because I never told people my middle name. I was just like, I thought it was hard to say. I used to get made fun of in high school that it sounded like diarrhea. It was just like weird. So I just never like told people my middle name. So I didn't want to completely change my identity necessarily. I just wanted something that wasn't Tanisha. So there wasn't a lot of thought behind it. It was just like, Dariana sounds more racially ambiguous. I could be Latina, which I am. I mean, my mother is Puerto Rican, which is where Dariana comes from. She picked that middle name. I don't know the story behind that. But that is, I felt like at least I wouldn't be boxed in as completely Black. It may be like, oh, maybe this woman is Latina or of another race. Could be Eastern European. Like, who really knows? So that's why I went with the middle name.
Yeah, I could get that. Dariana could come off as Italian. When I read it, well, I read Dariana Colon, so I was like, okay, that immediately screams Latinx to me.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
I was like Dominican, Puerto Rican. It's one of those.
Exactly.
So yeah,
which opens up more doors than being just Black. If we're gonna look at the statistics and the numbers and be frank about it,
right?
People are more open to. I'm light skinned as well. They're more open to that a Latinx woman as opposed to a Black woman,
right?
Straight up,
yeah. Sad but true. And
sad but true.
So let's look at some numbers. So job applicants with white names needed to send only about 10 resumes to get one callback for an interview. And those with African American sounding names needed to send 15 to get one callback. So there's already, some issue there. And then, and I'm sorry, I pulled this study from the National Bureau of Economic Research.
Okay.
So they also went on to say that a white name yields as many more callbacks as an additional 8 years of experience would. So just think about that. If you applied as Tanisha and you have 20 years of experience in your field and Kate applies with 12, they feel like y'all got the same amount of experience.
Yep.
Or in a worse scenario, you apply with 8 years experience and Kate's out of college and y'all are neck and neck.
Yep.
That is ridiculous.
It's alarming and it's disgusting. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So there's no reward in either space, either in applying or in valuing the quality of your experience and the work, if you have an African American sounding name. So, there's credible reason to do this. And I've had friends do it. I've had people, go by their initial for their first name. So in your case, it would be like T Colon-Bibb instead of Tanisha. I've seen that. I used to work in HR in Atlanta. So I saw every
some names.
every name you could possibly see. And me having my experience as a Black person, I didn't think anything twice about people's
Mm-hmm.
names. I was like, can you do the job? Yes or no? Are you going to
Mm-hmm.
do it well? Yes or no? I wasn't thinking about, oh, well, how's that name going to sound if it's announced over an intercom, or how's that name going to sound when it's listed as, a director or things like
Mm-hmm.
that. And I've heard conversations like that from people. And I've been in HR with other HR people and heard them have those conversations, which was very scary to
Mm-hmm.
know that. And these are people who, of my ilk, who are Black as well, having these conversations around names
Mm-hmm.
sounding ghetto and them not looking at resumes. I've had people tell me, "Oh, I threw that resume in the trash because her name was
Oh,
ridiculous," and it's like,
mm.
whoa, whoa, you're not
That's crazy,
right.
right?
You're not getting me caught up in your lawsuit, so
Right.
chill on that conversation. But and then the irony was, I remember this conversation specifically because the person who told me would have a unique sounding name by most standards, and they rubbed it off and was like, "Oh, it's French." People don't care about that. Does it sound a
Right.
certain way, or do they perceive it as a certain way? So it was like, you have probably been a victim of the same thing you're victimizing other people for. So
Mm.
it's a deep hole for our community. And where do you think that stems from? Where does that Black on Black name discrimination kind of stem from?
I think it's a deeper psychological issue, right? Like, I think it's this idea of there has to be someone below you, right? Like, you can't be the bottom of the totem pole. So we separate and tag each other by certain titles and ideas, and so that we could say, oh, but I'm better than this person, right? It goes back to any, you can think about anything that separates us. Oh, I'm lighter, I'm better. I have longer hair that's more manageable, aka what some may perceive as good hair, I'm better. Oh, I'm more fit, I'm slimmer. It's just like as many ways that we can cut ourselves away so that we're not at the bottom is what we do to one another, which is really, really disheartening, and it's sad. And instead of coming together and being more accepting and appreciative, and really understanding, like, well, what, like you asked me, what was the reason behind it? Because some people have names that really do have meaning. And one of the people that commented on my article, a white woman, I believe she was white. She was an academic though, and she said that she had done some research, and a lot of the reasons why people, well, moms and dads had named their children, there's this like popular idea of like mixing the father and the mother's name, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like your name is Shanisha, or your name, like something like that, because your dad's name is Sean and your mom's name's Tanisha or something like that. And so it stems back. Well, she referenced this. I haven't done the history, and I always reference, like, do Google if you want to learn more about this. I need to Google it myself, but she referenced it, and I'm gonna dig a little bit deeper into it. But she said that it comes from slavery when families were separated. So they would name their children a mix of the mom's and the dad's name so that the children still had some sort of connection to their parents when they were taken away from them.
Oh
Now,
wow.
I don't know the truth of it, but it sounds pretty darn smart and pretty darn good if you
Yeah.
think about it.
Yeah.
So if that's where that tradition comes from, then we can't be like, yo, Shanisha, she's lost already. Like, no, she's won, because that she actually has a connection to her parents that was stemmed from a tradition from us being torn apart as families. So it's like, instead of, being upset that people quote and then, like, where does the word ghetto name even come from? Like, not the word, the saying, right? What
Right.
does that even mean? Ghetto name, right? Ghettos weren't even made for African American people. So the fact that we even associate ourselves with ghettos is something that has culturally come about. They weren't made for us, they were made for immigrants, right? So it's like the idea that we've given ourselves these titles, ghetto sounding names. They didn't give us that title. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's a lot of psychological things that needs to happen, and a lot of like analyzation that needs to happen with ourselves, and why we choose to always have to have something to separate ourselves from somebody else.
Yeah, I didn't know about that either. I definitely got to do my Googles.
Yeah, I want to do some due diligence about that fact, but it sounds good, right?
Yeah,
It sounds like something that would make sense.
yeah, and I know that a lot of our names that we deem unique stem from like the 60s and the 70s, where
Right.
our people were going against the rails of the standards that have been put upon them. They wanted to have self identity. They wanted to have things that were their own, so
Yes.
they were shying away from those European safe names and taking this on themselves and really giving themselves a space to be creative in their names. So that's when
Yes.
we saw a lot of the Ishas, Equas, a lot of the adoption of Arabic names or
Yes.
traditionally African
African.
names.
Yep.
So there's a science and a purpose behind that too. And then
Yes.
it feels like sometime in the 80s or 90s, we started to buck back against that
Mhm.
and have an issue with it.
Yep.
And like I said, it's those pieces of history that we really should value and be like, oh, okay, that completely makes sense. And
Yeah.
it always trips me out about how unique white names are never given like this kind of flack. Like
Like Apple.
yeah, Apple. Look, let's go through some of the names that.
Chicago.
All right.
Like
There's a kid named Pilot,
right.
Banjo.
Right.
Look, we could go through Sarah Palin's whole family name, like Tag,
Exactly.
Trip, all that. I had a waitress named Ratchet, and it was white. It was a white girl. Now I know it wasn't Ratchet like in you Ratchet, but Ratchet as in like the tool. Like so,
Oh.
like that would be a quote unquote ghetto name. I knew a
Yeah.
guy in high school named Bear. Like
There are a lot of bears out there.
yeah,
Yeah.
there are a lot of bears out there. So, nobody thinks twice about those names. Now,
Right.
now, mind you, Pilot is a celebrity's child, so he may not have to ever deal with uh, dealing with that, or an Apple too. They may not ever have to worry about putting their resume up and being concerned about it. But
Exactly.
nobody thinks twice about those names. It's
Right.
it's nice, it's sweet. But when Cardi named her baby Culture, it was a big uproar
Right.
about it.
Yeah, I think that it obviously there's always double standards, right? But I mean, I those names are also like you can connect it to something in the English language. I think like, Bear, Apple Pilot, even Ratchet, right? You can connect those things to like something already in the English language. So it sounds familiar and comfortable. I think when you meet a Daquanisha, it's like, okay, like, you know what I mean? Or and it's interesting. I would like to know why some parents do because it happens, name their children after cars or liquor brands. I want to know why they do that, because that to me is different than what we've been talking about, which is the kind of cultural and or self-identifying names that we've gotten from the 60s and 70s. There was then this rush of Alizés and Lexuses and like things like that, which is like, okay, well, why are we now naming our children after these material and like material items? I think there's a difference in that, but I would want to know more about why the other side is happening.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
okay, so let's look at names like Oprah, which
Right.
is should be synonymous with success and power and impact.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think a kid graduating college today named Oprah would have their resume tossed in the trash?
No, I don't think so.
You don't think
I
so?
think that enough white people connect Oprah to Oprah, and they love her that it wouldn't. Mm-mm.
Because I mean, if you think about it, Oprah before Oprah was Oprah could be considered a unique slash ghetto
Oh,
name.
it definitely does sound unique.
Right.
And I've never even met another person named Oprah, honestly, or known another person named Oprah. I think that when you can connect a name to something, even Beyonce, think about it, Beyonce, that is technically a ghetto sounding name, right? But
Mm-hmm.
she is, please, if a Beyonce came across a desk, they would be fine with it. I
Right.
think it's just about connecting it to something else that they're familiar with. that makes it okay. When it's unfamiliar, it turns into like, well, I don't know who I'm going to get. When in reality, it's like, this is just my name. You know what I mean? Like, it has nothing to do with my capabilities.
Exactly. So do you think that if a resume with Oprah came across an HR person's desk, that they would automatically assume that it was a black person?
Probably.
So,
Yeah.
and see, and that's the thing. It's like, Oprah, anybody should be able to name their child that name. So, but if you see it on a resume, you're like, oh, you know what? This Oprah Jenkins is probably black, or it could
Yes,
be like
Oprah Jake.
Oprah. It could be Oprah Hershkovitz, and you would still think that she was black. Same thing with Beyonce. We would just automatically assume that the
They were black.
person was black.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a couple of episodes ago, I had this girl, Cindy Wilson, on, and she's Korean, but she was adopted by a black family. She went to HBCU, to Jackson State, got her master's there as well. And
Nice.
she said that when people saw her resume, they saw the Wilson and they saw the Jackson
Black.
State and automatically assumed that a black girl was coming in. And then she would walk in and be a Korean girl. And she was like, she could see the looks on their faces every time. So yeah,
I would be blown away. Yeah, I would be blown away.
Yeah, I told her, I was like, yeah, I would have automatically assumed that a black girl was walking through that door.
Absolutely.
Yeah, she said in one interview they placed bets on who was going to walk through the door, and nobody guessed Korean.
No.
Yeah, but yeah, it's frustrating to know that, and it's even like the name Barack. That name should be open to everybody to use. But does that put that person in that same kind of resume space that when I tossed those numbers out earlier from the Bureau of Economic Research, would that person get tossed because it's like, oh, there would be no white person named that, or I'm just assuming that that's a black or a brown person, so I automatically put different eyes on that. Yeah, we give so much power to names. I mean, for good reason. Yes. What is it? It's that quote that a person's name is the sweetest and most important sound to that person. But to know that, it could be used to decide your life. I don't know if you ever saw Freakonomics, where they did break down the name Misty. And we think I use this joke all the time when you think of the idea of like a dirty white trash person. You think the name Misty automatically comes up, and it was like, does that name lead to a certain lifestyle, or have we given a certain lifestyle to that name?
Exactly. Like, who has which element has the power? Right. Yeah.
Yeah, because there was a study too where like if Malik and George came from the same neighborhood, they both had the same likeliness of staying in that neighborhood, but Malik would have it would be 10 times harder for Malik to get out, even though they both had the same likelihood of remaining in that space if they were both black people in that name. So yeah, it's like, how does that work? Are we perpetuating an idea of that name by throwing away resumes, or is it the other way around? It's hard to figure out.
It is really hard to figure out. And I think that as much as we don't want, that was another debate that was going on in the comments. Like, do we not care and have whatever name we want, or do we play the game and get, in order to be successful and play use the name that's going to get us through the resume, the hiring process? I think it's a difficult decision, and it's obviously, it depends, and it also really depends on the industry, right? Like, I work in PR, it's a little different. If you worked in finance, much different than communications and marketing. If you wanted to be a rapper, much different. You know what I mean? Like, I think it also depends on the industry, but until the people in power, which are really like HR and high level, people that are hiring, can change the systems, names are always going to be an issue. Yeah. The system has to change.
Exactly. Do you remember the first time you introduced yourself as Dariana?
I don't remember the first time, but every time was gut-wrenching. Yeah. Every single time. I just felt like I was introducing someone else. I never said it confidently. I never, it was just always, it was every single time was gut-wrenching. Especially when I would do it in front of people that knew me as Tanisha. that would be really, really gut wrenching. Because as an entrepreneur, I'm constantly using my friends as a network, and they're introducing me to people. And it would be so awkward because sometimes my friends would be like, "This is Dariana," and I'd be like, "Yeah, my name's Dariana," and it would be weird for them, it'd be weird for me, and then the person would feel weirdness, but they would the third person that I'm meeting would feel weird, but they wouldn't know why. It was just like a really strange interaction every single time.
Yeah, I wondered about that. Like, were you still Tanisha with friends? Like, were you Dariana from 9 to 5, and then afterwards, people knew Tanisha?
Oh, absolutely. My friends would tell me I will never call you Dariana. Like they were so loyal to my first name. Because that's who they knew me as. And as much as we don't want to put power into names, like that's how people know you, right? And so they felt connected and loyal to my first name, and they were hurt in their own ways. And like, I'll never call you Dariana. And I think in their way, in telling me that, it was their way of telling me, like, you are enough as Tanisha. I don't know why you feel like you need. They never said those exact words, but I think with them saying, I'll never call you Dariana, it was kind of like, you are enough as Tanisha. It doesn't need to be anything else.
Did you feel like Dariana and Tanisha were two different people?
I definitely felt more Latina, like saying my name was Dariana, because it sounds more Latina. That would be the only thing. That would really be the only. No, I felt like I was pretty much the same. I think Tanisha is more confident. I think Dariana would be someone who was trying to figure herself out. I think Tanisha knows who she is.
And that's funny. So Tanisha would know who she is, but
I know, right? Yeah, that's the irony of it all.
yes. So how long has it been since you went back to Tanisha? You said it was the beginning of this year?
Yes, so it's been almost a year because homecoming is coming up. I always that is my marker for the year.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's been almost a year, and it's been the best year for me personally, the best year for me professionally. I literally feel like when I went back to my first name, everything opened up in a good way.
So did you send out like save the name cards to people who knew you as Dariana?
No, but like I changed all my email addresses and stuff, and people were and all of my social, but really it was the social. People were like, I was following someone named Tanisha Colon-Bibb, and then it changed to Tanisha Colon-Bibb, and I was so confused. A lot of people that I knew in high school were like, thank God, I'm so happy you're back. I think that was probably my save the name notification to everyone, was like when I changed it on social, it made it real. Yeah. It was real.
Yeah, because it's almost like a death of sorts. It's
yes.
I know people who've had loss, and even me who've had loss, and when everyone else in the world doesn't know that something has changed, and they ask you about the old you, it's kind of like that constant reminder of what used to be, and in a different life you lived. So yeah. But do you still worry about perception now that you've gone back to Tanisha?
I'm gonna say I try not to. I'm gonna say the irony is I am a very confident person, and so I'm very confident, but I'm not blind to the fact that I'm a Black woman in the world. I guess I'm trying to say, like, I'm not blind to that fact, and so it's always on my mind. But I don't lead with that kind of worry or anxiety about the perception that I used to.
And you said that you felt like just things opened up for you again. So do you feel like the Dariana years were wasted years?
That is such a good question. Yeah, I would say yes. Waste is difficult. Learned, right? Like okay. I learned a lot, and it definitely it allowed me to be where I am today. So I can't say that they were wasted, but it was definitely a journey and a learning experience that I needed. But who knows, right? There's always take the left or the right, right? And so there's always that decision in life. And so I think that if I would have stayed with Tanisha, would I be more successful? I can't really say that. other things might have hindered that success. So I don't think it's wasted years, but it's definitely learned years.
I like that. Yes,
Yeah.
learned years. Because
Yeah.
nothing is a waste. If you're
Nothing
still
is
here.
wasted. God, right. God does not waste anything. There was a reason why God put in my heart to change to Dariana, and there was a reason why he at that moment told me to change back. So I think of nothing as wasted because he has a bigger plan.
So now you've written the article. It's been up and spreading virally through social media and the likes. Do you look back at that article now that it's kind of rested on you and feel like there was something that you wanted to convey that you didn't necessarily get to in that article?
I think when people say, "Oh, Dariana is just as ethnic," I want to explain a little bit more about why I wasn't going to completely change my identity. You know what I mean? Like that wasn't going to happen. I think that would give people a little bit more insight. There's always more that you could say. There's always more to my story, right? This is a small snapshot of the entire process and the journey. So other than that kind of further explanation of why Dariana doesn't seem as ethnically far removed, that would be the only thing that I would go a little bit deeper into.
Well, Tanisha, formerly known as Dariana, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. And if people want that explanation, they can come here and listen to it. 'Cause
exactly.
we definitely went into your experience and then just the experience as a whole. So I'm glad that we were able to chop it up and have this conversation.
Me too.
So before we head out, tell the people where they can find out more about you and the work that you do.
Yes. I have a business website. Rebel Agency is my communications agency, public relations, marketing, and advertising. We are found at www.therebelagency.com. That's REBELLE agency.com. I'm on Instagram, Tanisha Colon-Bibb, and Twitter at Tanisha C, as in cat, Bibb, and then LinkedIn is Tanisha Colon-Bibb. I try to post a lot on social about different things that interest me, mainly things that are related to diversity and inclusion, Black people, Black women, women in general, politics. I'm really into current events and entertainment. So I'm always posting about something on one of those platforms. So yeah, definitely find me there.
Yes, and you can find Tanisha's article on Huffington Post and on LinkedIn. Which link would you like for me to put into the show notes?
My LinkedIn, the LinkedIn one.
Yeah, we'll do that because you should definitely be hiring Tanisha to do your PR work. She's been doing amazing work for CultureCon. So
thank you. And I'm excited about it. CultureCon is going to be amazing, guys. CultureCon.splashthat.com. We have some amazing people. John Legend. That's all I have to say is John Legend.
Right. Yeah. Look, every day I'm in shock. I'm like, oh, they coming too? Oh, snap.
Right.
All right.
Exactly. John Legend is an EGOT. He's one of 14 or 17, definitely less than 20 people in the world who have gotten all 4 awards. So that's like all I have to say.
Yeah, that man is amazing. So it's going to be very dope. Definitely copy your tickets if you haven't. And Tanisha, I'll see you there.
Yes. And I'm excited to meet you.
Yes. You guys, if you happen to show up, I'll be there as well. Come find me.
Hi.
Yes. Say hi. I'll have Ungentrified buttons on deck. So if you want one, come up to me. I'll hook you up. Of course, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Kent W. Johnson. You can find the podcast on those same places as well, at Ungentrified Pod. And of course, you can find this episode and all of the other episodes on our website, ungentrifiedpodcast.com, and on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you can think of putting your ears, the podcast is there. So definitely check it out. Subscribe if you haven't already done so. Hook your boy up with a review. Stars is nice, but when you write some words, it's even better.
Yes.
So yeah, definitely thank you guys for listening yet again. And Tanisha, like I said, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story.
Thank you for having me. I loved it.
All right, and we'll check you guys next time. Peace.